That song you love is on right now, not later, not on a playlist, not something you have to pay for. I mean live, right now. That's called radio. In Seattle, that's called Warm 106.9.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Staying Power, the show that is all about building a better life. And you want that, and I want that. Everybody wants that. And so that's what this show is about. For 1 hour every week, we get together and talk about one slice, one ingredient, one component of building a better life that may not be so evident in everyday life. And we hope that it resonates with you and you find it applicable in your own life. And to join me in this conversation is the person who always joins me in this conversation. And she's been doing it for a while now. And you know what? She's pretty damn good at it. It is my friend, my colleague, my co-host, so many things. Ashley Kniebel. Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
All right. Ready to roll today?
I'm ready. And, I have to say, I'm only as great as all those things that you mentioned, partially because it's me, but partially because you have helped me grow so much. If listeners ever tuned into my beginning episodes a while back. Now that we're on, 119 episodes strong. So if you ever listen to the first few ones, you have probably heard my growth. And a lot of it is because of JD. So
I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Well, and I could say the same thing. I mean, and the show continues to grow really well. And also, we should say here at the beginning, first of all, thank you for joining us. And if you're a first-time listener, thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have you here. And there are 118 episodes behind this one. So get to it, right? They're pretty good. So listen to them. But in terms of growing and being able to grow, we'd like to thank our sponsor, PARS Revive Renovation, for helping us grow and go to a whole new level. You can check them out at PARS Renovation, PARS renovation.com. They do home remodels of all different kinds in all different ways in homes throughout the East Side and larger Puget Sound area here up in the Pacific Northwest. And you can check them out again at parsrenovation.com. Thank you so much to them. We like to build a better life. Mm-hmm. They love to help you build better homes, right? So better internal space. They do better external space.
I mean, we even had an episode recently about that, about what your space says.
Yes.
You. So if you feel like your space isn't talking the way you want it to.
Yeah.
PARS doesn't feel
Renovation.
The way you want it.
Yeah. parsrenovation.com. And mention that you heard about them on our show and see what happens. That's all I'm going to say. All right. See what happens.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So Ashley, let's go ahead and jump into today's topic.
Okay.
And this one in advance for everybody, it's this one is kind of a little bit of a meatier topic, a little bit of a tougher one. Mm-hmm. We like to touch lots of things in this show. We touch on really happy stuff, kind of fun stuff. We try to run the gamut of the life experience because building a better life is about developing resilience. Mm-hmm. And resilience really grows through working through tougher things. Like as we mentioned last week, relationships, but I think also human beings grow as a response to tension, right? And challenge more than just about anything else, right? So
I would agree.
So this week, we're going to talk about saying goodbye. Not because we're saying goodbye, everybody. We're still here. We're not going anywhere, right? But we've had some experiences of late with saying goodbyes that kind of came all together recently in some interesting ways and brought us to here. Yes. And I thought I'd let you kind of bring us in on that one.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. I mean, it really was, again, my topic.
It was.
Last week was my topic, and this week, I guess, is also my topic.
Yeah.
People have always said, I'm a happy person, and I am a naturally, up, positive, gregarious, eccentric person.
You are a Sagittarius.
I am through and through, and I love that you know that. I am very fiery and spicy, but I do have, I know, surprise, like you didn't know already if you tune in. But I do have moments where it's not that way. I have my little gray moments of life, and sadly, I have had a small number of them, and they've kind of compounded. And it's just like you said, it's about saying goodbye. And I literally went and said goodbye to somebody, and that all on its own was really difficult. And then there was another person recently that I lost that I did not get to say goodbye to, or at least the last time I spoke to them and said goodbye, I didn't know it was going to be a goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like two sides of loss
Yeah.
that were unique to their own selves, but it just was an all-encompassing of like, it's difficult because it's painful.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to this topic, I think. And of course, naturally, I bring it up to JD, and he in his brilliant brain was like, oh, wait a minute. There's a lot in here that we can talk about. And he was great and helped talk me through some of my sad moments. And I appreciated the support.
You're
but
welcome.
There's just this idea that there's a lot of things in life that we envision and you train for and you prepare and you rehearse. And usually they're all beginnings, new things, like on a first date or your first day at a new job or the first impression you want to make or your new house and your new space and all these things. And we don't ever prepare to say goodbye or to let go and release. That is something that we naturally tend to avoid.
Yeah.
And we try to hold at arm's length.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand to an extent of why it's not comfortable, but sometimes I wonder, like, why do we try to just rush past it?
Yeah. Or pretend it's not there.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And you're talking about goodbyes in terms of people passing away, right?
That was
right.
my experiences. Yes.
And that, of course, is the big one,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the biggest that I think there is. And there's other forms of goodbye. So when you brought this up, we were talking about it, and I was reflecting, kind of stepping back. I was thinking too, well, of course we have goodbyes in our relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if somebody isn't passing away, relationships end, and those are painful too. But it can also be goodbyes within ourselves, right? It could be you're saying goodbye to a job. You're saying goodbye to a way you've identified yourself for a long period of time. It can be, and this one resonates with me, saying goodbye to old habits and ways of doing things that are either no longer serving you or you realize are harming you, right? Saying goodbye to an old way of being to reinvent yourself. I mean, these are all things that you mentioned. Why do we like beginnings? Because beginnings we can feel good about because they're kind of these moments. Saying goodbye is a process. It's a process leading up to that, or it's a process when we're thrust into it. And there's a lot to that, right? And so all these, but yet at the same time, as longtime listeners of this show know, we spend a lot of time on why these things that we talk about are actually hardwired into us and are things that we need to experience and that we need to learn how to face and to work through and to love through and live through and feel through. All those things. The neuropsychology of attachment and loss matters a lot, right? And Ashley's smiling at me, right? Because
rolling my eyeballs.
Here we go. That's right.
Buckle up.
I don't know if you knew this, but foundational attachment research, John Bowlby and others have done a lot of work on this. You know, we always talk about humans are wired for attachment, right? And for connection is a better way I would put it. But we do attach to things. We attach to people. We attach to habits. We attach to jobs and identities. Loss in the brain, this is interesting, activates the same systems as pain does. Physical pain activates the same system, which means if physical pain, when you hurt yourself, you pull your hand back. If you put it on a stove or you burn it, you immediately pull back, right? It's fight, flight, freeze, avoid, whatever the case may be. It triggers that, and it triggers the same chemicals in the body and the same responses in the body as physical pain. And we know this from brain imaging studies, right? And social loss, which is what we're talking about in a lot of ways, right? Both the internal kind of goodbyes and the external goodbyes. Social losses activate regions in the body and in the mind and in our feelings similar to physical injury, right? So that means goodbyes are experienced as a threat. We respond to physical pain because the body says this is a threat to your ability to live, right? So you pull your hand back from the fire when you burn it, right? You jump out of the way of the car, those kinds of things. And so we avoid goodbyes or we don't prep for them We don't think about them because we want to avoid pain. There's the fear of finality, which is always hard, right? The loss of identity and, of course, the uncertainty about the future, right? When you're saying goodbye to somebody else, you're losing them, of course, but you're also losing yourself with them.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, we talked about relationships and how do you really cultivate ones that aren't list making and are really built around connection. Well, if you develop those things really strongly, really profoundly, when you lose them, and we will lose them, the person who is saying goodbye or is left behind is going to experience terrible pain, right? Because of that. It just simply cannot be avoided. And we lose that part of ourselves that was living in definition with that other person, right? And that's probably what you were feeling a lot with these two experiences you talked about.
It was, they're both very, unexpected. One a little bit less than the other. One was very, very unexpected.
Ugh.
But in just in the generality of what you were saying, like, yes, you lose something in the moment, but there is something to be said about the fact that you are mourning the death or the no longer of the future that you envisioned.
Yeah.
We don't look at people and think like one day you're not going to be here.
Probably good that we don't.
You don't. That's a little dark.
Yeah.
And I know there's the cliche sayings of like, well, you only got one life and you don't know how long you have. And it's so true. And there are moments like this that really brings that to the surface a little bit more, makes you realize how fragile life is and that we really don't know how long we do have. But I don't think that people, unfortunately, it seems like it takes a loss for people to really understand like how much they value things and people and connections. And if you can have a moment like that and turn it into something where you're like, wow, I lost this and I now want to pour into my other relationships so much more while I have them.
Yeah.
Sometimes people feel that way with like parents, they realize they're at that pinnacle point of life where you have less time with them as opposed to before you had all the time in the world. And now you're like, I've got less time as opposed to more time with them.
Yeah.
And maybe I should be spending more time with them or be a little less reactive when they start to become forgetful and I get upset or whatever it might be. But there's just something, and I don't know why I keep going back to it, but just the idea of like, how do you rebuild yourself when you have lost what you were betting your entire rest of your life on? Now, the people in my life that I am either losing or have lost were not like lifelong partners or anything like that. So they didn't completely like shatter my world, but it was really impactful. And to not have any clue that these people were going to be gone. And I thankfully haven't lost a bunch of people in my life. I'm still young enough where I think I'm just now starting to hit that period of life where I'm going to start losing people more and more. And it was really odd because it seems like the last few years when I've been looking back just over the world, we've lost a lot of people in the first 4 months of every year.
Yeah.
You lose a lot of celebrities, big famous names or people that I know. It's like it was always in the first 4 months. And it was really odd in the beginning of this year. I was like, I wonder if I will lose people in the first 4 months. And oddly, I have.
Yeah.
And it's very strange. And I am like, well, it's part of life. So what are we going to do with it? I can't sit in the dark clouds forever about it. But what should I do? I know the only way out is through. And it's good to have good connections, like we spoke about last time, about what we want to maintain and how that is healthy and whatnot and what those people can do. And to bring the curiosity and sometimes the messiness. And that's when you want to be able to show up and just be how you are and not have to be like filtered. Like, okay, I'm a mess right now because I just lost somebody, but I need to piece it together because I'm talking to these people. Like, it's okay to not be.
Yeah.
Like I was working out in the gym and completely lost it. And I really didn't care who was around because I'm like, this is so honest and a raw emotion. And I would like to honor it in the moment. And I didn't make like a huge scene, but I also didn't try to like totally piece myself together because I was in public.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah. It's so powerful what you're talking about. And I am living in an era now where more people are passing away, right? And I'm in my early 50s, and my circles, this is a topic. You hear more and more, this person I knew from high school, this person I knew from college, right? Certainly parents, right? Passing away. These are all becoming things that become more regular, I guess. And, I think the answer on some level is what do we do with it? Well, in some ways, the question can answer itself when it comes to the person we've lost or the person we've said goodbye to. That's its own thing. What it can do for us is exactly what you just mentioned, is reinforce. We don't know how long we have with the others. So the people that are still here, what do we do with them? What do we invest with them? And we're getting ready to go into a break. And so I'll tell a story on the backside of the break to illustrate what I'm talking about. But I've kind of seen that happen recently with this core group of friends that I have. There have been a lot of goodbyes in the last few years in this core group of guy friends that I've had for years. And what we keep coming back to in all of this is each other and reinforcing this in each other. And I hadn't really thought about it the way I've been thinking about it right now until you brought this up. So when we come back from the break, let's go ahead and kind of pick up where we left off. And we will talk about other goodbyes, right? It's just this one is, I think these are the big ones, right? Is saying goodbye and recognizing that mortality. And what do we do with that? Because, goodbyes are a part of life. And that's what we're really driving home here. So stick around. And of course, later on in the show, we will have our weekly segment. This week, it is the 2 minutes of terror. And that's later on. Seems to fit, right? Wow. With all this. We hope you stick around with us on this very meaningful, challenging, but I think really important topic on staying power. Be back in just a minute. On Staying Power, we talk a lot about building a better life.
And a big part of that is the space you live in every day.
That's why we're excited to partner with PARS Revive Renovation, helping homeowners across the East Side and Puget Sound create spaces that truly reflect who they are.
Whether it's a kitchen, bathroom, or full home renovation, PARS Revive focuses on thoughtful design, quality craftsmanship, and your unique vision.
Because just like personal growth, your home should evolve with you.
To learn more, visit parsrenovation.com. That's PARS renovation.com and start building a space that supports the life you want to live.
My name is Ariel. When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without my high school diploma. My entire life changed when I took a chance and got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges.
Ariel, your success proves that what I'm doing as a teacher has real meaning.
It was an honor helping you achieve your greatness. Now you're helping others achieve theirs. It inspires me.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Find free and supportive adult education centers near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Don't ask me to talk.
There's a lot of talk out there. Political talk, sports talk, girl talk, trash talk, and so on. But there's only one, Don't Ask Me to Talk, helmed by conversational off-roaders and podcast pals Eric Ryder and Stacy Heller. They follow every tangent they encounter, from cultural blind spots to their infamous weekly Wheelo topics. Listen wherever you listen to your fave podcasts. Subscribe and share too. Or tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. or Tuesday at 4 p.m. on KKNW.
Alternative Talk 1150. It's good for what ails you. This statement has not been evaluated by the FDA.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
We are talking about the importance and the difficulty, of course, of saying goodbyes. And that can be to a lot of things, to other people who pass away suddenly or not so suddenly, relationships, jobs, identities, elements of ourselves, all these things. And hopefully talking about why this is not just important, but also useful and beneficial and can have really good things come out of it as well. And I left off before the break thinking about a story Ashley was talking about. And I have this group of friends. There were 4 of us. And kind of the first time I encountered what you were encountering and talking about was about 10, 11 years ago when one of them passed away very suddenly. And the rest of the 3 of us, we all went back to college years together. We worked in camps. We were camp counselors with each other. We all went to different schools, but we all got together every summer for summers and worked together and lived together and grew together. And one of them passed away, our friend Matt, very suddenly. And we had kind of lost touch with him. None of us had really talked with him in a few years. And so it was a smack in the face, right? Besides being horrible, it was like, whoa, why didn't we stay connected? We thought we had more time. We kept saying that, thought more time. And so we made we dedicated after that we would see each other intentionally as often as possible. And one of them, my friend Seth, he and I have seen each other at least once a year, every year since then. And we've done that. And my other friend Evan has been a part of that. We do a lot of sports trips together once a year. We have another one coming up in July, all these things. And then a couple of years ago, I've talked about it on the show, Seth's beloved wife, Jill, passed away from cancer. She battled it for about 4 years. And that was one of those life-defining things, right? It doesn't get any bigger than that. And that's been a couple of years. In those couple of years, his brother-in-law had a massive stroke and nearly died. And now, just recently, another one of his best friends just passed away from cancer. My other friend, Evan, a year ago, or a little over a year ago, almost 2 years ago now, his dad died very suddenly, right? And it just kind of kept happening. And we kept looking around, talking to each other. We talked about, I was like, man, why is all this? This is a lot all at once. Where's all this coming from? This type of thing. And kind of the answer I came to when you were talking about what do you do with all of this? Well, you grieve all of it. You certainly go through it, and it's ugly and it's unpredictable and there's no real print to it. But we keep coming back to each other, and what we reinforce that. The other day when Seth's friend passed away, he was in Colorado to say goodbye to him. I got this text from him to me and Evan out of the blue, and it said, "This goes without saying, guys, but I just want you to know I love you deeply," and a lot of other things in that. And of course, we all responded with, yeah, of course. The one thing that stands out to me, though, is that eventually there's just going to be one of us left, right?
Yeah.
And what do we do with that? And who do we want it to be? And honestly, because of how I am, because how I love these guys, I don't want them to be burdened with that. I will take that.
Sure.
Right? Now, I'm not going to wish for that, right? I'm not going to wish for that, but I would take that, right? But that type of thing, it reinforces the loss of something that we love or something that we identified with. If it is going to have value, and it should have value, is to reinforce our commitment to, our love for, our appreciation for the things that we still do have and the relationships that we can still make, and then help us build better ones,
right?
Hopefully.
Right.
That's what comes to mind.
That is a really interesting story. There's a lot in that story, but it's so relatable, and I mean, as much as these things are difficult, I appreciate them because of the fact that they do remind us of how delicate life is and how elusive the end is to us. And it is such a nice reminder in a way of to really live your life.
Yeah.
And to, in some instances, people will carry on and try and do things to honor the person that has left the world.
Of course.
And I think there is something so respectable about that. And I think there's something really special about that of like carrying on, like if they were trying to accomplish something, then they pick up where the other person had to leave off.
Yeah.
And they carry it on and they see it through. And I think that's such a special way to honor that person. But there's different goodbyes, right? Like you said, there's sudden goodbyes. Like I've experienced a sudden goodbye.
Oh yeah.
You experienced them, and they are hard because all of a sudden there's no closure. They're just gone, and you can't do anything about it, and you can't repair, and you're really shocked and disoriented, and then you're thinking back to what was the last moment, what was my last interaction?
Yeah, what was the last thing I said to him?
Right, and am I okay with what our parting words were? And it just feels so unreal. And then there's also the anticipated goodbyes where maybe someone's dealing with a long-term illness, or they're just getting older and maybe they're getting Alzheimer's or something. Like, you're slowly starting to lose them. And that has its own set of difficulties because it becomes exhausting. And there's times where I have been in this before, and sometimes I'm like, this is so hard. Like, I want it to be over. I don't want them gone, but this is so hard. And it's so hard to watch people suffer that I almost wish it was just done. So the suffering.
And then that brings up feelings of guilt.
Yeah. And then you're like, how dare I say that and think, but it's still true.
Yeah. That's called anticipatory grief, by the way. That's the term for it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And that's as opposed to the unanticipated, and you're right. I mean, you have time to process it at the front end. You can intentionally connect with those people. You can develop those moments. You can make sure you remember and say all the things that you want to make sure you say and all those things. But the challenges are immense, right? It's prolonged. It's open-ended. And you're kind of living in kind of a dual reality. I think of how it must have been for Seth, with his wife being sick, having to be present for her to the best of his ability, and you're experiencing loss at the same time. I mean, that's disorienting, right? And deflating and difficult. And then there's the chosen goodbyes, right? which are a different kind of tough.
Still tough all themselves.
Oh God, ending relationships, leaving a role, walking away from a certain dynamic, whatever. I mean, you mentioned it, guilt, doubt, second guessing, right? And of course, the benefit of that, though, is agency, and there's the possibility of change and newness and, an ability to grow, all of those things.
Well, there's a flip side to that, too.
Yeah.
Like, we've been talking about these goodbyes that are like difficult and kind of like downers, but there's also the positive goodbyes of, you mentioned it on the top of the show, but letting go of like old habits, old beliefs, old identities and versions of yourself that no longer fit who you feel like you are, who you want to be. They have served their purpose and they are no longer welcome. They are on their way. And those, at least you can acknowledge them and then let them go. And those ones actually can be really impactful. One, because you made the decision to let it go.
Yeah.
And you came to a resolution and a conclusion about them before the release of it.
Yeah.
And so
that's well said.
Times that feels easier, better, more okay to do so because you have found a resolution.
Yes.
And it feels very natural just to release it. And
yes, there is something to be said of when you say goodbye to something, because the pain of holding on to it finally became bigger than the pain and the fear of moving on without it.
Yes.
That's the definition of recovering from addiction, is exactly that. And that does have a deep impact. And yet what it also does, and what it's done in my case and in the case of many other people I know who have gone through that process, is it really starkly helps you define what you really are about. You know what doesn't work, you know what you don't want to do, you know how you don't want to be, and you know how you can be, and you never want to go back to that. So what do you want to be instead? Somebody said to me the other day, it was a really kind statement. They didn't even mean it as a compliment, but it was a huge compliment. They pointed out to me that if there's one thing that sets me off when I hear it, is somebody not keeping their word. When they say they're going to be a certain way, particularly in relationships. I work with a lot of men who struggle in relationships, and it can drive me nuts when, men do what men can do and they don't follow through on their agreements. That bothers me, because what I learned and how I wanted to be coming out of addiction is I wanted to say what I meant, mean what I said, and in everything, people in my life had to have informed consent. And by that, I mean wholeheartedly, they needed to know who I was. They needed to know what I was about. They needed to know what I cared about. And if they were going to be in a relationship with me that had any sort of intimacy, physical, sexual, emotional, whatever it might be, they had to know who they were dealing with so that they could know what that was about. And I have had many times people who have said, thank you very much. I am not going to go with that. Thank you very much for telling me, but that is not for me.
Right.
And those are difficult. And at the same time, reinforcing of, okay, I always wanted, but when I was running and gunning in my crazy days, I wanted everybody to believe this version of myself that I put forward, that I was this good guy, that I was, different than everybody else, blah, 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 blah. But I wasn't. So the big drive for me was saying goodbye to all those things was, can I be the person that I've wanted everybody else to believe I am? And in order to do that, I had to be that person when nobody was watching. Right?
That's very true.
And so I think those things are important. And I think if you talked to, I know for a fact, if I talked to my friends, Seth and Evan, my friend Matt's widow, who's a friend of mine, all of them, they would all be able to tell you these really important things that they have learned, and the depth to which their sense of self and their love for other people has just grown, right? And it exists alongside that loss, right? I think it's the same even when we're saying goodbye to things within ourselves. I don't know.
No, I would agree. I mean, it's not linear.
Right.
There's so many different stages of things that come up. It's fluid. It's not a checklist. And it's not like, okay, I finished this stage and I'm on to the next. And you can feel like you have moved beyond and you're in a more stable place. And you're like, okay, I have done the beginning and instantaneous, like gut-wrenching grief and processing of that and all the emotional turmoil you go through. And sometimes it lapses, you have moments in life that remind you of something, and that is difficult. And you're like, holy crap, I'm starting all over again. I thought I got past this, and now you're beating yourself up over it. And it's like those emotions, we've talked about it a while back on the show, but we talked about like your emotions and what you feel are like the little children at the door, and it's stormy outside,
right.
And they're all on your porch, and you don't just choose, oh, I want joy and excitement and fun and laughter to come in, but I'm going to leave anger and denial and depression out on the porch because it's like pouring rain and they're little children and they need love and care too. And so you let them all in, and you house all of them. And as they're ready, they will leave. Yep. They know how long they need to stay. And you have to be okay when they are ready to leave.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that can be what is hard about mourning and loss, is when part of your body is like, I've mourned enough. And the other part of you is like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because if I'm done mourning, that means I've totally lost that person forever. And it feels not okay. And that is just comfort. Yeah. That is not a nice place to be either, because you're like, am I not honoring them anymore because I'm not mourning them anymore?
Yeah.
Is it okay that I move on? Is it too soon? Is it not, like
what does that even mean?
Yeah.
What does moving on even mean?
Yes. Am I allowed to do that? And you have to find those answers for yourself.
Yeah. And they're never clear, right? And they can be different from day to day. That's why, like, the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief is sort of what you're talking about. I think sometimes if we turn that into a checklist, it becomes a problem. Am I in the denial stage? Am I in the acceptance stage? Am I in the depression stage? When it's all of those things all the time. And depending on the degree of the loss, which does correspond directly with the depth of the love and the depth of the identifying and the depth of the habit, the deeper that is, the harder it's going to be, the more difficult it's going to feel. And yet we can't turn this, and so many people these days, because that idea is so painful, try and turn all that off. They try not to be connected. They try not to feel. They isolate, right? But you can't numb one set of feelings and leave the other ones intact. You can't. So if you're going to numb the difficult feelings, the sadness, the grief, you're going to numb all the things that produce happiness and joy and peace and meaning making. And in the end, that is what we're talking about, is we have to make meaning out of what these losses do. what they tend to show us, I think, across the board is that we're a lot more resilient than we think we are, right? Mm-hmm. We tend to think these emotions of various kinds are going to kill us if they become too heavy, too overwhelming, and yet they don't, right? I say this to clients all the time, and I've said it kind of laughingly on this show before, but I think it's really true. Every single person that you talk to, that I talk to, that you and I meet, every single person who is listening to this episode right now has literally survived 100% of everything that has ever happened to them. Mm-hmm. 100%. Mm-hmm. You know, if we're talking sports, you're in the Hall of Fame, right? You know, and with half of that. But we have. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody is developing resilience in the same way, or that people are coping with it all the same way, or people, you know, because the world is full of examples of people not doing effective jobs in growing in ways that are healthy for them and others when facing these things. And yet, we're still here, right? All of that is key. And so I think the meaning making is what happens. If you come out of something like that and says, none of this matters, everything's impermanent, you know, the world is this way, you can't count on anything, and you bail out, you are guaranteed, by making the meaning that nothing matters, you are guaranteed to continue to find reasons why things don't matter.
Yeah, you'll find what you're looking for.
Right. You find what you're looking for. And if you come out of it saying, I am going to not take the love that I have, or the relationships I have, or the gifts that I have for granted anymore, no matter what, you're going to find ways to continue not to take those things for granted. You know, it is an inside job.
Yes, it is.
All of it is an inside job. So, okay. Whew. All right, Ashley, let's take another break. Okay. I think we both need a deep breath.
Sure.
And when we come back, not only will we have some practical steps on some things and that hope that you can apply right away in your life, but we'll also have our weekly segment where Ashley and I take a couple minutes to talk about something that happened in the past week. And this week, it's the 2 minutes of terror. So you're going to want to stick around for that. We'll do that right after the break here on Staying Power.
If you've been thinking about upgrading your home, this might be your sign.
We're proud to be sponsored by Pars Revive Renovation, serving Bellevue, the East Side, and the greater Puget Sound.
They specialize in turning everyday spaces into something functional, beautiful, and tailored to you.
From kitchens and bathrooms to full renovations, they bring the same level of care and attention to detail that we talk about here on Staying Power.
Because your environment matters. It shapes how you feel, think, and live.
Check them out at parsrenovation.com. That's P-A-R-S renovation.com, and see what's possible for your home.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Hey, JD, do you want to have a better life?
Yeah, doesn't everybody?
Yes, we do. How do I go about doing that?
A good place to start would be listening to our new show, Staying Power.
What's it about?
It's about all the ways we can overcome the challenges that we sometimes put in front of ourselves to live a better life.
Where can I find it?
You can listen to it on 1150 AM KKNW every Wednesday at 4 p.m. and Fridays at 9 a.m. or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's do this together every week on Staying Power.
Bringing good vibes to the Puget Sound and the world. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
And we are talking about a difficult topic, saying goodbye, but a really important one and frankly a ubiquitous one in the human experience. We all face it and we might as well just confront it and recognize it as such an important part of actually living, right, and growing. And it produces beautiful things. It can produce beautiful things. So before we get back into those practical steps, it is time for our weekly segment where Ashley and I will take 2 minutes to talk about something that happened in our week, how it affected us, what we got from it, all in the name of vulnerability, sharing, connection, resilience, all those things that make life better. Here we go. 2 minutes of terror. What broke? That's what I keep wondering.
Hopefully not a mirror.
Yeah, hopefully not a mirror. Okay, Ashley, what do you got?
Me? Okay, I have to admit this to everybody who is listening and watching, and JD probably already knows this, but I have some terrible road rage. And, it's interesting. Why you're laughing? Because he knows. He's been on the phone with me a lot when my road rage goes like just way too far.
Oh,
it's awful.
It interrupts whole conversations.
Very colorful. Very interruptive because it's, it just happens and I have to.
Now, it is verbal. It is just verbal. She doesn't take it out with reckless driving.
I wish.
Right?
No, I don't. I do control that. But however, you know what I noticed, which is so not okay, and I'm calling myself on the carpet about it because that's what I do here. This is what I do. But when I'm the passenger and the person driving, which is not common, but if I'm the passenger and somebody else is driving and they start losing it, I'm like, well, you need to it's fine. Like, it's okay. Calm down. It's not that big of a deal. Like, just let it go.
You're judging them.
When I'm driving, I obviously get a pass and I am just going off on these people. And I'm like, Ashley, you can't have it both ways. I mean, you can, but it's not fair. So allow them to have road rage. So I can have mine.
Yeah, you can have yours. As long as you don't take it out on person with the car.
No, but as long as they stop riding the line and they actually merge, this would make life easier.
That is the biggest one, by the way. If people are wondering what triggers her the most in the car, it's people not merging well. So if you're in the Seattle area and you're driving around, make sure you're merging the way you know how to merge, okay? Which means when you're getting on the freeway, accelerate to the speed of traffic.
Yes, please.
Because it drives her crazy if you don't. Okay, that's awesome. That's a good one. Okay, mine is based on the fact that I am moving. I'm in the midst of a move, and not moving very far. I'm moving to a new place, which is about 10 miles from my current place, so closer to work. It's downsizing a bit, but I'm good about that because it's just me, and I found that I don't need a whole lot to be comfortable in life, so I'm happy about that. The terror isn't so much about the move, right? That just takes care of itself. The terror is I'm going through my stuff.
Uh-oh.
I have so much crap.
You didn't know?
Not to this degree. I was pulling stuff out from storage, and I have storage spots like under my bed and my closet, pulling stuff out that I have not seen in years and didn't even remember that I had for years.
Say, were you happy to see these things, or were you
Some of them
embarrassed?
I was like, I have no idea that I still had that. Some of it I was like, oh wow, why do I still have that? Other things was like, I totally forgot I had that. Okay. And some of it was hilarious, right? I was like, I actually wore that shirt. Wow, I'm not wearing that anymore.
That's why your stylist said put it away.
Right, that one's not happening anymore. But it led to this. I had to ask myself. I actually sat down and said to myself out loud by myself, am I a pack rat? Why do I keep all this stuff? And a lot of it has to go. Like, it's not going to fit in a new place. So it's not a bad thing. But this terror of, wow, what's the psychology of holding on to all these things?
Ooh, does this mean that you have to say goodbye?
I have to say goodbye to stuff. And it's actually been okay because I've been filling it with bags and taking it to Goodwill and stuff like that, which has been good. But man, it was a little sobering going, wow, I haven't seen that in a while. And there was one spot, I had this one spot in the closet where I was pulling things up, and I pulled the stuff out, and stuffed in the corner was one sock.
Oh no.
And it's a sock I've been looking for the longest time.
You
it's
probably
been like,
blamed it on the washer and dryer, didn't
right,
you?
because that's what we all do. We blame the washer and dryer. But anyway, it was just one, and I have no idea how it ended up back there.
But I mean, that goes to show that honestly, now that you've said hello to all those things, you could probably say like, well, Haven't seen you in a long time, so we can keep this going.
Right. Yeah. No need to
Off
bring you
with
back
you.
in.
Yeah, you don't need to come back.
No need to bring you back in.
I honestly thought you were going to say that you were worried you were going to lose like the new keys to your place, because you have mentioned a few times before that you misplaced.
Yeah, I misplaced
your
stuff.
keys.
Yeah. Nope. Haven't done that yet.
So far we're good.
But it ain't over yet. Right. So,
Sure.
Okay. All right. That was good. All right. So let's get back now to Ashley. When talking about saying goodbye, I think that this last segment, let's talk about how to navigate goodbyes and to really remember what they do give us.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we have to anticipate them or dread them or spend a lot of time with them. But I think it is important. Like, we spend a lot of time preparing for beginnings and thinking about beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to spend some time on ends, with that too. All right. So what are some practical things? Let's go ahead and start. We can ping pong them.
I would say the first one, to try and bring some closure to yourself, no matter how the goodbye is going, is to create your own closure. Close the loop yourself, because that's what a lot of people struggle with, right? They spin out of control and they just are reckless because they're like, I never got closure. I never got the answers I was looking for. I never learned why, or, whatever it might be. And when you realize that is your reality, you're not going to get that answer, but you feel like you need something, create your own closure. Come to your own conclusion. Have a discussion out loud with yourself. Write a letter of maybe like, hey, this didn't go as I wanted. This is what I would have wanted, but this is how it's going. And that's going to be okay, because I'm going to move on from this. Like, this cannot overtake my entire life. Find something or create like a new habit or ritual or something to help yourself through that.
Yeah.
You do have to help yourself, and sometimes look at yourself from a third party perspective of like, if this is my friend going through this rough time, like, what would I do for them? Like,
right.
Your friend is you.
Right.
So what do you need to do for you to help you get through this?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good one. Yeah. I think it's really good. And in addition to what we sort of already said, allowing your full emotional experience, right? Don't resist anything. Right? Grief, relief, confusion, gratitude. Doesn't mean you have to feed them, pour gasoline on them, indulge in them or lose yourself in them, but experience them, right? And know that they are transitory, right? The waves of grief that come through will not last forever. There will be some joy. There will be some peace. There will be some reflection, allowing all those things. But in addition to that, I think it is important, and sometimes I think we need permission to do this, to honor what was lost, what you said goodbye to, right? Imagine if we shifted everything from it's over, no matter what we're talking about. If we shifted it from it's over to it mattered, right? I know for me, I told, a story of my own addiction days. Did that matter? Yeah, it mattered. Not so much what I was struggling with, but what came out of it, what I had to learn because of that, even what I lost because of it. And what I lost was enormous. And the things that I lost and the people that I lost, they mattered. And in some ways they still do matter, because they remind me why I keep going in a different direction.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they still matter. I don't necessarily spend a lot of time thinking about that. It's been a long time now. And I try to be present with myself as much as I can. But to say that it's over, let it go, I tend to believe that whole idea of letting go of the past is just kind of foolish. It's a foolish idea. Because we don't. But what we can do is, instead of assigning it as this huge loss or it was a waste of time or something like that, it did matter. It did matter. And then if we compare that with it mattered, and so does where I am right now, that can help us.
Yes. I mean, creating the space for redefining those is what will help you bridge the gap from back then to now. Because like you said, you can't let go of history. History is there. History brought you here.
Yep.
Now you can make sure in certain regards that history doesn't repeat itself, but an end is also a beginning.
Yes.
And I know people are like, that's so hard. I can't even think about that, whatnot. But eventually at some point, as your self is healing and processing and going through it, you'll realize that an end is also a beginning, and it leads to new things and new space and new capacity and new opportunity. And new platforms for you to build and to grow and to welcome in things that maybe you never thought you would do before. And sometimes people try to do it immediately because they just want to fill the void.
Yeah.
And I would say cautionary to that, because you're not trying to fill a void. You want healing to take over, not just to fill a space with some empty stuff. You want to make sure you are healed and wholesome as you are moving through this and welcoming in the new things.
I love that. I love that. The last one, there's more, but the last one, for the sake of time that I'll add, is share about it. Share. Give it air. Give it words. Give it emotion. Give it space. Give it to other people, right? Well, I talked about my group of friends, these 3 guys that of the 4 that are left, and how often we talk about these things, right? And we share about these things, and we hold space for the other as they go through these things. Sharing it helps us see that other people get it. That even though we have to confront these goodbyes on our own, there are others who know what that feels like. And there are others that are there if it just gets tough to do it on your own all the time, right? It matters a lot. And giving it words, when we give something words, we actually end up figuring out a lot more about what to do next than we would if we just kept it to ourselves. So.
Absolutely. Well, and you sharing your experience will probably help somebody else get through theirs.
Yep.
And then in turn, you will find people that have been through what you're going through right now. And there is something really powerful in knowing that somebody else has walked this same path and they got to the other side and they're okay. They're alive. They're doing all right. Somebody, if they had gone through addiction and whatnot and heard your story and they're like, look at JD today, that'll give them hope that like their life is not over because of that. Like their life has so much more promise and meaning waiting for them in the future as long as they just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually been a humble privilege actually to have worked with a lot of men who've been in that situation, who have drawn some hope and drawn some new direction from it. And that's something that I feel good about. I've helped other people pull their own lives out of the dirt. And they needed more than just me, that's for sure. And they actually had to do the work themselves, but it does matter. And it does help me at the times where I'm feeling low or when I'm questioning things to go, okay, there's been value there. Right. All right. Ooh, anything else?
I don't think so. I think I shared a lot.
Did share a lot. We did share a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to this. And I know that all of you that are listening are probably thinking about a goodbye or two that you're either going through or you've done or you're having to contemplate or that you're facing. And first of all, we hope that this was helpful somehow with this and that they pulled something from this that will help you. And also that just to remind you that you're right where you're supposed to be. And, this is survivable. And there's a lot that's really good about it. And we would love to hear from you. If you'd ever like to reach out to us to tell us your own stories, your own thoughts, you can reach us at stayingpowershow@gmail.com. You can also find in the show notes for every episode, wherever you get this as a podcast, and our YouTube channel, in the show notes, links to our social media feeds. You can communicate with us there. And you can also find us at our radio home, the website for the show at 1150 a.m. KKNW in Seattle. Thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, Pars Renovation. Again, if you want to visit and see their quality work and consider whether or not you want them to help you out, it's parsrenovation.com. They are in the East Side and larger Puget Sound area of the Pacific Northwest here in Seattle. And we hope that you'll check them out. And if you do check them out, you talk to them, make sure you tell them that you heard about them on Staying Power and watch what happens. All right. And so we will be back next week with another episode about how you can build a better life. And to find out what that topic's going to be, you're going to have to come and show up because we still have to figure that out. It's kind of how we do things, right? Know. We kind of go with what's going on at any given point in life. That's where we draw from it. So, Ashley, thank you so much for bringing all of this in. Thank you so much to all of you for listening. Thank you to Nathan, our engineer behind the board, who you can't see, but he's waving. Yes, he's waving. And for me, I'm JDK Winnikin.
And I'm Ashley.
See you next week.